Sanhua is one of the best sub DPSs in the game. She is both the most fun, in my opinion, and incredibly strong. Not only is she simple to play, but she's also useful for many different characters. So let's talk about her ideal weapons, Teamcomps, echoes, and sequence nodes, because she's a 4-star. So Sanhua is a sword user, making her best in slot weapon the Emerald of Genesis. It gives ER attack buffs, and it has a very high base attack and crit rate main stat. Then the next best free-to-play option is Commando of Conviction. You can get this weapon from the Ranger series weapon supply chest. And then the worst alternatives as placeholders can be either Lunar Cutter or Sword number 18, both of which perform slightly worse than Commando. For her team comps, her primary use is a sub DPS basic attack buffer. So let's talk about who she works well with in these comps. Firstly, Encore, the best basic attacker in the game. Pair these two with Verena and it will just shred everything. You can replace Verena with Bai Ji, and you can replace Encore with Ling Yang, Havoc Rover, and in the future Jin Shi. Although Jin Shi isn't necessarily a basic attacker, she just has a lot of basic attacks in her rotations, and Sanhua has some value in her comps. But alternatively, you can play an on-field main DPS Sanhua. Considering the amount of self buffing mechanics in her kit and her sequence nodes, on-fielding her is actually pretty good. So if you enjoy her playstyle, then you can use her with Jianjin for an alt buff, or Mortify for a heavy buff, and then Verena or Bai Ji for support. You can also use Tao Chi for her resonance skill deepen, but she's not really the best, and only buffing Sanhua's skills won't be that useful. Now onto Sanhua's echo sets. If you want her to be your main DPS, use the 5-piece Freezing Frost set, but if she's your sub DPS buffer, use the Moonlit Cloud set. And your echo ability should be the Myriad for a main DPS playstyle, and the Impermanence Heron for a sub DPS playstyle. The ideal echo cost spread will be 4-3-3-1-1, and the main stats of which will be crit rate or crit damage on the 4 costs, glacio damage on both 3 costs, and attack percent on both 1 costs. This applies to both builds. And then finally, the substats Sanhua wants in order of importance is energy regen until you can consistently ult during your rotations, then crit rate and crit damage, attack percent, and lastly skill damage percent, basic damage percent, and heavy damage percent. The damage percent stats provide less value than crit and attack percent, but they're useful to fill in those 5 substat slots. Okay, so I'm going to talk about her sequence nodes and how they change her because she is a 4-star character. Starting with S1, when she does her 5th basic attack, she gets a massive 15% crit rate buff for 10 seconds. Of course, this really helps her as a main DPS, not so much as a sub DPS, but it's good nonetheless. There is also this weird tech where instead of basic attacking until her 5th, which can take a while, you can do a heavy attack releasing on the gray. You don't have to detonate her forte, and doing so will skip her to the 4th basic attack, letting her get this buff slightly faster. And then S2 reduces the cost of a detonated heavy attack by 10, kinda useful, and her skill increases her anti-interruption, which can be also useful, but doesn't make her any stronger. S3 increases her damage by 35% against enemies with 70% HP or lower. This node is a massive damage increase and makes her much stronger. S4, her Resonance Liberation restores 10 energy, which lowers her already low ER requirements. At this point, you only need around like 15% ER. And also her next detonated heavy attack does 120% more damage within a 5-second window after her ultimate, which is easily doable within proper rotations. Again, this node is just a straight up damage increase. S5 grants her Forte Circuit detonations 100% crit damage, which is a small damage increase to her overall output, and also her icicles produced by her skill, ult, and intro will detonate automatically without having to trigger them. This doesn't really change anything. Then finally S6, her most useful one. After she detonates her skill or liberation, she grants everyone on your team, including herself, a 20% attack buff for 20 seconds. Overall, all of Sanhua's sequence nodes make her way stronger, but S6 turns her into the best, most versatile sub DPS in the game. So everyone should build her, use her, she'll carry you, and your on-fielder. She's amazing.